With me, I have Miss Karen Hill. She is the president and CEO of the Harriet Tubman Home. For those who don't know, where is the home located?
Okay, the Harriet Tubman Home is actually located in central New York in the Finger Lakes region in Auburn, New York. And we're not only the Harriet Tubman Home, but her home is actually a National Historical Park. So we're a full part of the National Park Service.
Talk about this new the coins and the relationship with the U.S. Mint and this project that has come forth. I'll say I went on to look at the packages they have for the coins because I know I want to as well get them. But talk about what is happening now.
Well, the Harriet Tubman Home has been privileged over time to work with a number of federal agencies, and I have to be absolutely honest and say this has been the most dynamic, the most strategic, and the most stimulating experience working. I feel like we had a federal partner who understood what we were all about. We were created by the African Methodist Episcopal Zion Church, and we'll be here in great abundance on Saturday morning for the prayer breakfast, Day of Healing. But we're responsible. We are the keepers of Harriet Tubman's legacy. She chose the African Methodist Episcopal Zion Church to carry her legacy through. And a big part of our job is to make sure that people see Tubman's legacy in context with what we're dealing with today. Not history for history's sake, but history because it's relevant to prepare you strategically for how to deal in the world today and beyond. So when I think of Tubman, we did these coins, how prophetic it is that we did these coins before we knew God would ordain that Kamala Harris would be the Democratic nominee. But the coins represent Tubman, who lived for 91 years, and that's a testimony in and of itself, because to be born in slavery.
I always think, and go through what she went through.
Born in slavery along the eastern shore of Maryland, not that far from here, and to live there for several years. And when she knew that she was about to be sold deeper into slavery, even though she was married to a free man, Tubman knew that she herself needed to be free. And she loved her husband, John Tubman. She kept his name all her life, John Tubman. So she left to come and seek freedom north. And the trips north were just amazing. She not only freed herself, but she did approximately 9 to 13 trips back along the eastern shore, freeing more than 70 people directly herself, her family and friends, and then providing the instructions for 70 more. And she worked in the hospitality industry along Cape May in order to finance the trip. She paid for everything for all of her passengers. So you'll hear things like she never lost a passenger, the train never ran off the track. That's what that refers to. Yes, she did. She was opposed to war, but she did carry a gun during that time because she knew that if you were thinking about going back, it would also be very easy for the slave masters to get information from you that would endanger everyone. So Tubman was one of 9 children of Ben and Rit Ross, came north, had a great experience in New Jersey, in Philadelphia, which was her first home, where she met William Still, considered the godfather of the Underground Railroad, the father of the Underground Railroad. Then she went up to New York, and when the Fugitive Slave Act was enacted, making it lawful for people to arrest slaves, although they were free, you could still be. So then she went to Canada, to St. Catherine, and then she came back down to central New York, to Auburn, New York, which is where she settled. And what is amazing is you have to come to the park, because the park is exquisite, it's beautiful. For someone to have been born a slave and be able to amass through her ingenuity, her financial stewardship, 32 acres of land, which I preside over today and preserve, and we're open to the public, is amazing. It should be an inspiration to all people, and it especially should be an inspiration to all women to have the courage to step out on faith and go forward. Now, Tubman knew that she wanted all the rights that she possibly could have accorded to her. So when she moved to Auburn, and Auburn's about 20 minutes away from Seneca Falls, the birthplace of the women's rights movement. So she immediately, even though that movement was 10 years old when she moved there, she immediately influenced the women's rights movement because she was the only person who could legitimately and be positively received going into lecture halls explaining why women should get the vote. Now, mind you, women were going to get the vote even though it excluded black women and all women of color. But she understood. See, Tubman always, I should go back and say, you know, people wonder where did she get her fortitude and her courage, and she was very explicit about it, that she spoke to God and God spoke to her. And when she had the occurrence of a brick falling, you know, a brick being struck by a brick coming out of the general store in Bucktown, she was in a coma for 2 or 3 months. Her mother nursed her, and that whole time she was communing with God, communing with God, communing with God. And God told her, this is what you have been called to do. And it's interesting because Frederick Douglass was born not that far from Tubman, and they were great friends in this freedom struggle. And Douglass was literate, great orator. Tubman never learned how to read or write, but she understood. She understood. And so he would write her these letters, and he would say, you know, Harriet, I have had like the opportunity to meet with Congress, to meet with the president, to really deliver my oratory in front of the most powerful people in this nation about the value of freedom. But how amazing it is that my work would be worth nothing if I didn't have the empirical information and data that you provide through your work of bringing people up out of slavery into the freedom of the North, just the value of being free. So this friendship was lifelong, and Douglass was involved in the women's rights movement. But Tubman was able to go in and explain why it was important to expand the franchise to women, because she was very providential in knowing that one day it would include black women. She saw, you know, Ella Baker and Fannie Lou Hamer and Rosa Parks. She saw that women would be included. And a week before Tubman passed away in 1913 is when they held a historic, they used to call them parades. The inaugurations used to be held in March. And she died on March 10th, 1913, and on March 3rd, they had this amazing protest, if you will, of women of every stripe, and Ida B. Wells and Delta Sigma Theta were like key participants who refused to march at the back. Okay, who refused to march at the back to really say it is time for women to get the vote. So, you know, my time with Tubman has been about making sure that people know that early history, but more importantly, what I really spend my time on is that people know what she did as a free woman, her freedom journey. And it's important. Yes, everybody wants to know the story of her birth and coming to the North, but what's more important is what you do when you are free. How do you activate your freedom? Okay. Don't take your freedom for granted. Your economic freedom, your educational freedom. You're free to be whom God made you to be. Okay? You know, and Tubman was constantly doing things to activate her freedom. She was the first woman to lead an armed raid into enemy territory along the Combahee River in South Carolina, freeing over 750 slaves, which changed the fortunes of the Civil War, completely changed the fortunes of the Civil War, as many of those who became free then joined the Union Army. Okay? I mean, she was just, and she's in the United States Military Intelligence, their Hall of Fame, as one of the most deft spies and scouts that this country has ever had.
I think that like this, that's why it's so important, because we only hear a small portion of the story. And this, when we talk about in the day when we're banning books and kids don't know their history, this is so important, especially when we're talking about women's rights and what happens, what do you do? When you said, what do you do once you are free?
Once you are free, right. She wanted to be a property owner because property owners had more rights than people who didn't own property. She took in, now this is really important, she let her house be used for battered women and their children long before it was even spoken about in this country, okay? Before people acknowledge that women are being abused in their home environment. She adopted a child. I mean, she believed in scholarship. One of the things that you hear anecdotally all the time is from that people come up to me and say, my grandfather shared with me that when he was a little boy, you know, she gave out fruits and vegetables to them for bringing home good grades. Even though she could not read or write, she admired scholarship. But also on her property, and this is the kind of heart she had, she knew that providing health care was very important. She created a hospital on the grounds of her property where she provided free, universal health care to blacks and whites alike.
It is incredible, like, and I'm listening to you, some of which I knew, some of which I didn't, but I think, like, when you tell this, the fact that we can go and see, where can people go, like, if they're like, they hear this story, they're like, okay, I gotta go, I missed it. Where can people go?
Well, you have to come to Auburn, that's where we are.
That's all right, we'll
okay,
make that trip.
Right, come to Auburn. Finger Lakes is a beautiful place during the summer, spring, summer, early fall months. And we're open Tuesday through Saturday. We do 2 tours a day, incredible tours. And we also have on the property, which one time had 9 cottages, but she created so that our seniors of color, could age in dignity and grace. She created senior citizen housing on the property. And so one of our cottages still stands today. This is like, she just knew that if you're free, you're free, there's more work to be done. There is more work to be done. So when I hear, Kamala Harris talk about, the need for Medicare to continue, the need for seniors to have that dignity with Social Security, and we all need proper housing, and knowing that Tubman provided all of that.
Yes. That's the connection.
Yes. And then proper nutrition. Okay, she lived to be 91 years of age because she was very, very particular about what she put into her vessel.
Y'all listening to that? This is a moment then that is so current and relevant and connected. It is the same conversation, the same story.
I mean, it just carries through. So every time, I hear the stories of who is inspired our vice president, and we're completely nonpartisan, but she is a woman who has been lifted up to a special place in our current culture, and she just sits on Tubman's shoulders in such a granular way, that I just feel like the blessings just keep coming. And she was a woman of faith. She never put her belief in God was never second in her life. It was always at the forefront of her life.
I think that's a message that we all need to take with us and to go back and rediscover those who blaze the trails, especially we're dealing with some of the same issues. I let me just say, Ms. Hill, thank you for coming on AURN. Because I'm sitting at your feet now in my spirit, and I'm like, oh my gosh. What is the website that people can go to if they want to get more information?
Right, you can go to HarrietTubmanHouse.org.
HarrietTubmanHouse.org.
Or you can go on the MPS website, which I can't remember what MPS uses, but
That's okay. We're going to find it.
The National Park Service website.
We'll put it up so people can find more information. And the next time I interview, I want to do it there.
Oh, we would love to have you.
We
would love to have you because, like I said, we are 20 minutes away from the women's rights movement, Seneca Falls, where it all began.
All right,
so you have got to come and see. You have a whole story. And Central New York was like the heartbeat of the abolitionist movement.
Absolutely.
So you want to come and see,
All right, AUR, we're coming. We're coming.
We often have naturalization ceremonies on our property, and we have people who have just recently become our brothers and sisters, new Americans, and they want the first air that they breathe to be Tubman air, the ground that they stand on when they take
We're going to get some Tubman air. We're going to walk the Tubman grounds. I love it. Miss Karen, you are a treasure for us.
Oh, thank you. I thank you. I
really mean that from the bottom of my heart. Look. Stay tuned for AURN because we're going to come and we're going to do a story there. Like, I just want to breathe that Tubman air, and especially in this day and age. Again, make sure you go to the website. And thank you so much, Ms. Hill, for talking with us on AURN.